The story begins with the narration of a simple wish that had been there since childhood. The first wish was that his father wouldn't drink and mistreat him during the day. Another wish was that his mother, who ran away from home, would one day return to him. He also dreamed of being able to hold a pen instead of a shovel at least one day a week. And more than anything, he imagined what it would be like to have a family waiting for him at dinner time. With so many impossible dreams, he began to imagine a different possibility for his life. What if he had a secret family somewhere in the world waiting for him? The young man wondered if this family would be wealthy and happy, just like in his dreams. Incredibly, his wildest wish was about to come true. Inside a courtroom, a judge announced the verdict of a very important lawsuit. The final verdict was that the plaintiff, Kim Chan-yeol, would receive 300 million won. Hearing the decision, Kim Chan-yeol clenched his fist with a mix of emotions. Nearby, a lawyer started putting his documents into a black briefcase. Two men commented that Kim Chan-yeol is the true son of the Samwon group. They continued gossiping about how tragic it is to have elite genes and end up living like that. Kim Chan-yeol overheard the malicious comments, saying he got easy money for doing nothing. The men left the courtroom wondering what kind of woman would live with someone like him. At that moment, a hand touched the protagonist's shoulder and called out Mr. Kim Chan-yeol's name. The young man looked back and recognized that the man was the lawyer from his case. The lawyer said that the money won't be enough to get the family he is looking for so much. Without understanding, Kim Chan-yeol was confused by the man's words. The lawyer explained that the case was only won because the chairman of the Samwon group allowed it. He revealed that no reporters were present because nobody wants to upset such a powerful family. Then the man leaned in and whispered for Kim Chan-yeol to take the money and disappear forever. He advised him to consider it an act of mercy from the chairman and live quietly. After the lawyer left, Kim Chan-yeol's frustration exploded into a single punch. The scene changes to the front of a massive, luxurious mansion in a wealthy neighborhood. Kim Chan-yeol is there being held back by security guards while begging to meet his family. One of the men struck him hard, saying that the chairman cannot know he is there. Another man in a suit called Manager Kim looked down at him on the ground and laughed at the compensation money. Fallen on the ground, Kim Chan-yeol showed a look of complete pain and despair. He wondered if 300 million would pay for an entire stolen life, and a woman approached. The blonde woman asked Manager Kim what was happening out there in front of the house. The manager lied, saying it was just a vagrant, and Kim Chan-yeol tried to call out for his mother. The woman found his face familiar, but the young man next to her hurried her along, saying they were late. The young man told his mother to go inside and that the staff would give the man some change to make him leave. The woman obeyed, but couldn't help looking back with a strange feeling. Her son put his arm around her and led her inside the house, saying it was cold outside. As soon as she turned away, the young man coldly ordered Manager Kim to get rid of Kim Chan-yeol. A strong hand covered the protagonist's mouth, preventing his desperate cries from being heard. In his mind, Kim Chan-yeol caught a glimpse of the life that should have been his. This image of happiness shattered, and all that remained was hatred in his eyes. The scene changes to a dark alley where a small rat is lying on the ground. The animal startled at a sudden noise and looked up on alert. The rat ran away as Kim Chan-yeol's foot passed by it in the alley. After being thrown out of the mansion, the protagonist walked through a poor neighborhood. He finally arrived home, opening the door to a simple old apartment. The young man entered the dark room and flipped the light switch on the wall. A voice greeted him while a finger pressed the button on a remote control. Kim Chan-yeol stared into the living room with a tired expression full of anger. An old man with white hair lying on the floor asked how his day went. The elderly man gave a smug smile while watching the youth's reaction. He then sat up and asked if his descendant managed to win the trial. On a news broadcast, the TV announced that Choi Yoon-ki was appointed vice chairman of the Samwon Group. The reporter mentioned that the appointment comes amidst the fragile health of Chairman Choi Chul-ho. Meanwhile, a notification arrived on Kim Chan-yeol's phone confirming the deposit of the money. Even with 300 million in his account, the protagonist's expression didn't change. He gritted his teeth, holding back tears of frustration and injustice. The ghost of his ancestor appeared beside him and told him to stop crying. In a provoking way, the spirit asked if Kim Chan-yeol looked like he was about to hit him. The ancestor went on to say that honestly, that was a major life upgrade. It is revealed that this ghost appeared 6 months ago and keeps talking nonstop. According to the spirit, he is his great-great-grandfather and keeps bragging about helping him. Suddenly, Kim Chan-yeol exploded in fury and shouted, wondering what good the money was. He vented that his stolen life will never come back, no matter what happens. The ghost floated calmly, saying he only told the truth because the young man could see him. The young man asked why he made him find out the truth just to leave him in despair. Heartbroken, he shouted that his life was already horrible enough before. In a flashback, he remembered his difficult childhood with an abusive father. With his face bruised from when he was a child, he asked what the ghost wanted from him. The ancestor seemed to think for a moment before finally giving an answer. The ghost revealed that his only wish was to receive a memorial meal from his descendants. The revelation took Kim Chan-yeol completely by surprise. The spirit complained that his wealthy descendants never hold a memorial service for him. The ghost lamented dramatically, saying he felt miserable for having had children. Kim Chan-yel gritted his teeth, annoyed by the spirit's selfish request. He said the ghost shouldn't have put him through all that for such a silly reason. At that moment, the protagonist's phone started receiving multiple messages. It was a collection notice from Manager Park saying he owed 1 billion just in loan interest. Seeing the collection message, Kim Chan-yel let out a bitter, humorless laugh. The ancestor sang happily about the memorial table, and Kim Chan-yel finally agreed to do it. The protagonist then started putting on his jacket, leaving the spirit confused by the action. With a new decision in mind, he thought that he didn't care about the compensation money anymore. He decided to leave his past and his birth behind and left the house with the excited ghost. The scene moves to an old, isolated temple located in the middle of the mountains. In the temple courtyard, a monk swept the stone floor with a straw broom. Suddenly, the sound of suitcase wheels breaking the silence drew attention to the place. Kim Chan-yel arrived at the temple pulling a suitcase and stared at the monk who was watching him. The man explained that the temple does not accept visitors during that period and asked what he wanted. Ignoring the warning, Kim Chan-yel entered one of the buildings while the monk tried to stop him. The young man threw the suitcase onto the wooden floor of the room without saying a single word. Inside the room, another older monk turned to see who had just entered. Facing Kim Chan-yel, the man in orange robes looked surprised and a bit startled. The monk turned pale and started breaking out in a cold sweat, not understanding what was happening. His gaze filled with shock upon seeing what the mysterious young man came to do there. Kim Chan-yel opened the suitcase, revealing 300 million, and said he would give it all to him. With a determined look, the protagonist prepared to make a single request. He offered all the money so that the monk would perform a memorial service for the ghost. A short time later, in a more private room of the temple, everything was already prepared. The monk explained that he prepared the table in a hurry as requested, even though it was humble. The ghost of his ancestor was completely marveled by the food and the ceremony. He flew around the table, celebrating that his wish was finally fulfilled. The monk sighed and commented that the ghost must be quite persistent to still be around. He told Kim Chan-yel not to worry because he suspected it was the ghost of a young maiden. The man guaranteed that after that service, the spirit would never appear again. The protagonist said he was going to take a short walk, and the monk warned him not to go the back area. While he walked, a heavy rain began to fall over the forest surrounding the temple. He ignored the warning and passed a sign that clearly said "Do not enter." The wooden sign with the words "No entry" swayed with the force of the wind. His feet stepped onto the wet dirt as he continued his way through the restricted area. The trail led him to the edge of a very high cliff under the heavy storm. In profile, Kim Chan-yel faced the void with a calm and decisive expression. In his thoughts, he stated to himself that he had no regrets. He thought that money was never his, and his life would be spent paying off debts. His only wish was to have had a normal family, and he remembered what he never had. The image of a hand falling lifeless into a puddle of water showed the end of his journey. The bruised and motionless hand represented the final choice of a man who lost everything. The camera showed the view from the bottom of the cliff, while the rain continued to fall. Kim Chan-yel's consciousness faded away into a dark, starry place. He felt as if he were going back in time to the moment of his own birth. His hand floated toward a distant memory of the delivery room and the doctors. He remembered when he was just a newborn in his mother's arms. Suddenly, the protagonist squeezed his eyes shut tight, as if he were waking up. Slowly, one of his eyes opened, and he realized everything felt like a horrible dream. The doctor's voice praised him, saying he is the most beautiful baby he has ever seen born. Still confused, he was sure he fell from a cliff, but now he was in someone's arms. At that moment, a familiar and annoying voice broke the silence of the room. The ghost of his ancestor was there and warned him that he won't get Ed out of the memorial service. Before his eyes, he saw the faces of his biological mother and his father, Choi Chul-ho. Trapped in a baby's body, all he could do was cry from anger and frustration. Time passed and the scene changes to a first birthday party with a banner for Choi Yoon-ki. Several wealthy guests arrived for the traditional family celebration. An older man was greeted as the chairman by everyone present at the party. The chairman said that for the family status, that party is still very simple. A woman then placed baby Choi Yoon-ki on the floor so he could choose an object. The boy's mother encouraged him to hurry up and pick something to predict his future. The baby, who was actually Kim Chan-yel, looked at the ghost of his ancestor with annoyance. The spirit complained that his descendants should show more respect for him. He kept grumbling that thanks to him, the youth got his original life back. Ignoring the grandmother, the baby crawled in another direction and grabbed a man's pants. In his thoughts, the protagonist recognized that man as his grandfather. The grandfather is the current chairman of the modern Samwon group and looked like a serious man. The baby then reached his arms out toward his grandfather, who picked him up. The chairman laughed happily and lifted his grandson in the air, saying the boy chose him. The ghost of the ancestor also celebrated proudly, saying that that is his grandson. The chairman said it was about time a certain person showed up at the party. He turned to the grandmother and said that a grandson of Choi Ga-hyun has to be grand. At that moment, a woman with brown hair arrived and called out Yoon-ki's name. The chairman greeted her as his second daughter-in-law, and Kim Chan-yel stared at her. In his mind, the protagonist wondered if that woman is the one to blame for everything. A flashback showed the ghost saying that the baby's switch was no simple accident. The memory of the ancestor's voice echoed in Kim Chan-yeol's mind with a warning tone. Anger grew in his eyes as he realized that woman might have ruined his life. The aunt asked to hold her nephew, and Chairman Choi Ji-hyun stared at her. Choi Chol-ho seemed surprised by the decision, but the grandfather handed the baby over to the woman. With a strange smile on her face, the aunt held little Kim Chan-yeol in her arms. She complained that the baby is very heavy, and one of her nails broke from the effort. With a furious look, the protagonist noticed the malice in that woman's heart. Without hesitating, the little baby firmly grabbed his aunt's long hair. The woman screamed in pain, and everyone at the party panicked at the sudden commotion. The ancestor ghost celebrated the baby's action as he pulled his aunt's hair with all his might. With a battle cry, baby Kim Chan-yeol showed he won't fall for the same trick twice. The spirit confirmed that the woman is named Park Kung-jae, and she was the one who switched the babies. The scene changes to a flashback showing the storefront of a massive corporate building. A narration explained that that company would become the major conglomerate, Samwon Group. The company's history began during the turbulent era of the Korean War. The founding chairman, Choi Gi-hyun, built the company with help from Colonel Coulson. The colonel had a daughter named Park Yeon-jae who married the eldest son, Choi Chol-ho. The second son, Choi Chol-min, married Park Kung-jae, completing the family. The scene goes back to the present in Chairman Choi Ji-hyun's office. An assistant finished delivering a witness report to his boss. The report stated that Park Kyung-jae was seen trying to enter the nursery at dawn. She was caught and gave the excuse that she just wanted to see her nephew's face before leaving. The chairman grew pensive, wanting to know what happened after that incident. Back at the birthday party, the baby continued a show of screaming and commotion. His parents Choi Chol-ho and Park Yeon-jae grew desperate at their son's reaction. His mother picked him up, saying he got scared because a stranger held him. The aunt, Park Kung-jae, complained in a low voice about how much she paid for her hair. With a look of pure hatred, she stared at the baby, who challenged her without any fear. But she shut up instantly upon realizing someone was watching her closely. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun stared at her with a serious and suspicious look. Park Kung-jae forced a smile and said the baby is fierce and almost made her drop him. In her dark thoughts, she wondered what that boy is going to turn into. Little Kim Chan-yeol noticed the malice and decided that the revenge wasn't over yet. He started crying again, leaving his parents completely confused by the situation. Park Kung-jae asked what was wrong with him, sounding annoyed by the crying. The baby screamed even louder whenever she tried to step closer to pick him up. The woman backed away startled, and the ancestor ghost laughed at the amusing scene. The moment she moved away, the baby stopped crying and flashed a peaceful smile. Park Kyung-jae tried to hide her anger with a nervous laugh, not knowing what to do. But she only had to take one step toward the baby for him to start screaming again. Frustrated, she walked away for good, thinking the child has a serious problem. In the office, the report concluded by saying that nothing was officially reported at the time. The assistant asked the chairman if he wishes for the case to be investigated now. After thinking for a moment, Chairman Choi Gi-hyun finally agreed. He seemed determined to find out the truth behind his daughter-in-law's strange behavior. The story jumps 2 years into the future at the chairman's mansion, where a scream is heard. Park Kung-jae came out of a room furious, while the boy's mother met her in the hallway. His mother, Park Yeon-jae, asked if Yoon-ki was disrespectful to his aunt again. With a tired expression, she seemed exhausted by the constant conflicts in the family. While playing with his blocks, the boy wondered why his aunt left in such a hurry. He remembered that last time she passed him a cold that got him hospitalized. The ghost of his ancestor then asked if he finally understood how he must live. The spirit said his past life was so pathetic that he preferred to stay quiet. He asked what the boy will do now and warned him that his aunt won't be the only problem. The ancestor revealed that Park Kung-jae will die in a car accident at age 36. In his thoughts, the boy reflected that living a normal life was enough until now. But with the presence of his aunt and the threat she poses, everything changed completely. He stared at a family portrait and realized that his grandfather's other children are also threats. With his eyes full of determination, the boy squeezed a toy block in his hand. He decided that no matter what happens, he needs to build a solid foundation for the future. The ancestor said that with the chance to relive his life, he doesn't need to be like the others. The spirit continued his speech, saying that school only teaches the basics and he can do more. Suddenly, in a comical scene, the little boy bit the ghost finger hard. The ancestor screamed in pain while the boy thought that he makes too much noise for a ghost. He realized that the old spirit isn't just a chatterbox who only cares about food. Surprisingly, the ghost has his own thoughts and plans for the future. With his arms crossed, the boy asked skeptically how the spirit could help him. The ancestor started bragging about his past and his great life achievements. He revealed that he achieved second place in the state exams without using any bribes. The spirit explained that this is like passing the hardest exams of the modern era. He said he traveled the world and has a lot of knowledge to share with his grandson. The ancestor then proposed a mutual help agreement for the benefit of both. He would teach the boy to become the chairman in exchange for his memorial tables. The boy stared at his great-great-grandfather's ghostly hand while considering the proposal. He thought that the skills of Choi Deok-bae, his ancestor, would be of great help. The boy finally agreed to the deal but imposed a very important condition. His hand rose in the air with a glow of spiritual energy around it. He struck the ghost and demanded that Choi Duk-bae stop speaking to him casually. The scene changes to the mansion hallway where the lights of a chandelier shine. Choi Duk-bae watched his grandson sleep and whispered that the first trial has arrived. The boy woke up startled by the noise, and the ghost called for him to get up. A strange man entered the room complaining that the family lives very simply. He stretched and thought that he wanted to steal everything they own. Turning around, the man ran right into the awake boy and tried to cover up the situation. Choi Duk-bae announced that that man is the first challenge to change his destiny. In a file, the man's identity is revealed as Kim Shin-ju, 36 years old. A car door opens and shows the man getting out of the vehicle outside. Kim Shin-ju's profile identified him as a very dangerous professional scammer. Little Choi Yoon-ki understood that a major incident is about to happen. Choi Duk-bae explained that Kim Shin-ju scammed people with a fake company. The ghost said that back then, the financial system wasn't traceable like it is today. It was easy for scammers like him to simply take the money and disappear without a trace. The ancestor revealed that because of this scam, grandfather Choi had almost lost everything. Little Choi Yoon-ki understood that even with the scam, the company managed to grow. This meant he could simply do nothing and let history take its course. But in his thoughts, the boy wondered if he would be satisfied with that choice. His eyes filled with cold determination, and he decided he won't stand still. Meanwhile, the scammer Kim Shin-ju reached for something in his inside jacket pocket. He prepared to light a cigarette but noticed that the little boy had approached him. Choi Yoon-ki hugged the man's leg, leaving the scammer confused by the situation. Kim Shin-ju smiled and commented that the boy has a cute side, unlike his grandfather. Suddenly, the scammer felt something wet on his pants and realized what happened. The ghost Choi Duk-bae tried to hold back his laughter at the unexpected and brilliant scene. Instantly, the boy started crying loudly to get everyone's attention. The boy's desperate crying echoed through the mansion and reached all the way to the kitchen. His mother, Park Yeon-ji, startled at the scream and ran to see what happened. In her haste, she ended up bumping into a kettle with hot water that was on the counter. The maid who was next to her tried to grab the object, but it slipped from her hands. The hot water splashed through the air and hit the house employee's arm. The pot fell to the floor while the maid writhed in pain from the hot liquid. The employee cried out for Miss Park Yeon-ji, but she said she is fine and didn't get hurt. She thanked the maid and asked her to go tend to the young master, who kept crying. Park Yeon-ji ran through the mansion hallways toward her son's room. She entered the room and found the scammer standing near the boy, who wouldn't stop screaming. Kim Shin-ju panicked and tried to explain himself, saying he didn't make the boy cry. The mother pushed him aside and picked her son up, asking if the man had mistreated him in any way. The scammer tried to defend himself, but the mother didn't believe his words and glared at him with anger. Hiding behind a pillar, the boy thought that he was actually the one in control there. Choi Duk-bae defended her, saying she has no way of knowing what really happened. The commotion drew the chairman's attention, who arrived and asked why there was so much noise. The boy's mother ran to her father-in-law and tried to explain what the man did to her son. Choi Ji-hyun grew furious and asked if the scammer dared to touch his grandson. Kim Shin-ju tried to explain himself, but the chairman ordered him to shut his mouth immediately. With the fury of a tiger, the grandfather kicked the man out of his house and canceled any business. 2 guards dragged him outside while he begged for another chance. The ghost Choi Duk-bae watched the scene with a satisfied smile on his face. He seemed impressed by the intelligence and cunning of his little descendant. In his grandfather's arms, the boy received affection from his parents, and the ghost congratulated him. With the first test completed, the boy felt ready to continue his plan. Years later in a kindergarten, 2 girls fought over who gets to be Snow White. The teacher tried to calm the children down, but the argument kept getting louder. Little Choi Yoon-ki watched the scene from afar with the ghost Choi Duk-bae by his side. The ancestor yawned, bored by a child's talk about their parents. The boy talking to Choi Yoon-ki didn't seem to notice that he wasn't paying attention. He mentioned that his mother sent herbs for burns and asked if the teacher received them. Suddenly, a girl named Soon-jae decided she's going to be Snow White no matter what. She pushed the other girl hard to try to grab the character script. The girl who was pushed fell right on top of the boy who was talking to Choi Yoon-ki. The teacher ran to help the girl while our protagonist remained calm. The 2 girls started crying and fighting over the role of Snow White in the play. Not understanding, the teacher asked why they were crying, and Choi Yoon-ki stepped forward. He told the teacher that he would play the role of Snow White himself, surprising everyone. The boy explained that since the character has the most lines, he can help the children. The teacher was happy with his attitude and agreed to shorten the lines of the play. She then started rehearsing the scene where Snow White walks from one side to the other. The girls in the room were enchanted by little Choi Yoon-ki's acting. Outside the kindergarten, the sign read Sun and Stars Kindergarten, with a blue sky in the background. The scene changes to the family mansion where an important meeting is taking place. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun told his son and daughter-in-law that they must keep a lot in mind. Park Yeon-ji explained that since Choi Yoon-ki is already 5 years old, they need to decide his future. The grandfather asked the parents where they think the boy should go to school. The father, Choi Chul-ho, said he agrees with his father's decision without even thinking. The chairman complained about the quick response and asked if he hadn't thought about the matter. The father then passed the responsibility to his wife, saying she knows more about this. Park Yeon-ji grew pensive and began to analyze the best options for her son. She asked if her father-in-law was considering elite schools for their highly intelligent grandson. The chairman said he could send him there but wasn't sure if it's the best path. Choi Chol-ho suggested that they send the boy to study in the United States. The chairman went silent for a moment, seeming to consider all the possibilities. The father then raised his hand and had an idea that seemed the most sensible of all. He suggested that they simply ask Choi Yoon-ki himself what he wants to do. Choi Chol-ho said that since the boy is very smart, he must already know what he wants for himself. The chairman and his daughter-in-law exchanged a surprised look at the unexpected suggestion. Meanwhile, little Choi Yoon-ki was called into the room where the conversation was happening. Choi Deok-bae warned him that the adults were deciding his future at that very moment. The boy was confused by the news and didn't understand why his future was on the line. Upon entering the room, his grandfather called him close with a hand gesture and a smile. The chairman explained that he needs to start school and gave him two options to choose from. He can either study abroad in the United States or go to a famous private school. Grandfather Choi Ji-hyen guaranteed his grandson that he will send him to whichever school he chooses. Little Choi Yoon-ki listened intently to his grandfather's promise with a calm look. With a confident smile on his face, the boy turned to give his definitive answer. He began to speak, leaving his grandfather curious about what his big decision would be. The scene fills with light and transitions to a future time, showing a new beginning. Years later, in a teacher's lounge, a sign indicated the name of the room. Two teachers talked about the arrival of a new student from a very wealthy family. Other school staff joined the gossip, curious about the new student. The sound of high heels approached the lounge door, drawing everyone's attention. One of the teachers stood up startled upon seeing the elegant figure that had just arrived. A woman in sunglasses asked if she is Miss Park Seon-ja, the first-grade teacher. The teacher nervously thanked the woman for taking the time to come out there. The mother, Park Yae, formally introduced herself along with her son, Choi Yoon-ki. Back in the past, grandfather Choi Ji-hyen asked if the boy wanted a school nearby. He reminded him that if his grandson went to the United States, he could see his maternal grandfather. But the boy replied that he prefers to stay close so he won't be away from his grandfather. Chairman Choi Ji-hyen let out a happy laugh and agreed that the family should stay together. The parents Choi Chol-ho and Park Yeon-ji were touched by the little boy's words. In his mind, the protagonist thought that having Choi Deok-bae around is already enough. The scene returns to the present, showing the front of Choi Yoon-ki's new school. In the teacher's lounge, the boy's mother thanked the teacher for her attention. Park Yeon-ji walked through the room with her son, who now looked like an elegant boy. The teacher, Park Seon-jae, was surprised to see that the new student's mother is a foreigner. She praised the boy's looks and Park Yeon-ji said he looks more like his grandfather. At that moment, the mother handed a thick, yellow envelope to the school teacher. The woman was shocked by the thickness of the envelope, not knowing what to do with it. Park Yeon-ji said her son is well behaved and asked to be contacted if there are any problems. Inside the envelope, the teacher found several 10,000 won bills as a gift. With tears in her eyes, she was moved by the family's generosity toward the student. Another teacher watched her from afar while she counted the money she just received. The next day, a luxurious black car drove little Choi Yoon-ki to school. The boy asked the driver to drop him off right there before reaching his destination. He explained that he doesn't want to be labeled as the rich kid on his very first day of class. The driver agreed to the request but warned that he would return if anything happened. Choi Yoon-ki grabbed his backpack and prepared to start his new school life. With his hands in his pockets, he walked toward the school with a confident posture. Other children watched him and commented among themselves that he must be very rich. The boy gave an awkward smile upon realizing his plan didn't work as expected. The ghost Choi Deok-bae laughed and said everyone already noticed his wealth anyway. In front of the school, a banner announced the entrance ceremony for Jeongwon Elementary School. In front of the school, a black luxury car pulled up right in front of the main gate. The ghost Choi Deok-bae wondered why the car was blocking everyone's way. He recognized the vehicle model as a Daewoo Record Royal, a very expensive car. A driver opened the door and asked for the young master to step out of the car carefully. A boy's leather shoes stepped onto the asphalt with a confident and arrogant posture. Outside, the boy stared at Choi Yoon-ki with a look of superiority. His lips curled into a smirk as he judged the other boy from head to toe. The driver stood next to the boy, who seemed to be comparing himself to Choi Yoon-ki. He gave a mocking smile before turning his back on our protagonist. The boy ordered the driver to carry his things and follow him inside the school. Choi Yoon-ki watched the scene, not understanding what was happening right there in front of him. With a blue sky in the background, the front of the school looked peaceful and normal. Inside the classroom, a sign on the door indicated that was 6th grade class 1. The teacher Park Seon-ja introduced the last new student to the class named Lee Won-hee. Lee Won-hee bragged about his wealthy family and the car everyone saw at the entrance. Choi Yoon-ki already felt that his school life would be much more exhausting than he imagined. Suddenly, a boy approached him, excited that they were in the same class. He shouted that they must be friends chosen by heaven to study together. This loud and excited boy is named Kim Jin-soo, an old classmate from kindergarten. A flashback reveals that Kim Jin-soo is the son of the maid who got burned at the mansion. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun discovered the accident and decided to compensate the employee. As a favor, he employed her permanently and placed her son in the same class as Choi Yoon-ki. The plan was for Kim Jin-soo to look after the chairman's grandson without even knowing it. The school bell rang, announcing the end of class and the start of recess. The classroom filled with noise and movement, with children running all over the place. Lee Won-hee opened his backpack while a girl approached his desk curiously. He pulled a cream bread out of a fancy package that caught everyone's attention. The boy took a bite of the bread with an expression of someone eating something incredible. He then turned to the girl next to him and called her over to talk to him. Lee Won-hee asked if she didn't have those foods at her house and offered a piece. He said that since she is his desk partner, he would make a special exception. With the cream bread as bait, he asked who else in the room wanted a piece. He offered the sweet in exchange for a classmate carrying his backpack at the end of the day. The boy also got a girl to sharpen his pencils in exchange for the snack. Another student offered to do his cleaning duty to earn the cream bread. In no time, Lee Won-hee became the center of attention in the classroom. Choi Yoon-ki and the ghost Choi Duck-bae watched the scene from afar with contempt. The ancestor wondered where a brat like that learned to behave that way. Class ended and all the students gathered around Lee Won-hee to get something. Choi Yoon-ki stared at the new class bully with a serious and challenging look. One of the classmates watched the scene with an expression of disapproval. Kim Jin-soo noticed that Choi Yoon-ki was standing up and asked where he was going. The protagonist told his friend to stay there, and the boy obeyed without understanding anything. The youth then headed to the teacher's lounge to put his plan into action. He approached the teacher, Park Sean-ja, and asked if he could use the phone for a moment. The teacher agreed, and the boy thanked her politely before approaching the desk. With steady fingers, he dialed a number on an old black rotary phone. On the other end of the line, the driver answered and asked if the young master needed something. Choi Yoon-ki ordered the driver to provide 500 cream breads for the next recess. The teacher, Park Sean-ja, returned to the classroom without imagining what had just happened. She opened the door, still thinking about the strange conversation she overheard on the phone. Suddenly, a loud noise coming from the room left her completely startled. All the students were slumped over their desks, sleeping after eating a lot of bread. The classroom was full of cream bread wrappers scattered all over the place. Not understanding the scene, the teacher Park Seon-ja heard crying coming from the back of the room. On Lee Won-hee's desk, a pencil sharpener shaped like a train was broken. The rich boy cried desperately with his face full of tears and sadness. The teacher ran over to him and asked why he was crying like that. On the wall, a child's drawing showed Lee Won-hee's face with that same tearful look. 50 minutes earlier, the driver was shocked by the request for 500 breads. But Choi Yoon-ki confirmed the order and said he needed everything before the next recess. In another place, the driver was in the middle of a game when he received the call. He hung up the phone and prepared to leave to fulfill the young master's order. The driver said goodbye to the man he was playing with and said he needed to take care of a matter. The older man complained that he couldn't leave and told him to wait right there. Ignoring the warning, the driver ran to the car and promised to return to finish the game. Back in the classroom, Lee Won-hee's train sharpener gleamed on his desk. He bragged to his classmates, saying that it is a special pencil sharpener. The boy proudly shared that his father bought the expensive object on a trip to Japan. At that moment, the driver entered the room carrying several cardboard boxes. He placed the heavy boxes on the floor near the teacher's desk with a thud. The man announced that he brought the order, and Choi Yoon-ki thanked him for the quick work. Upon opening the boxes, the driver poured a mountain of cream breads onto the desk. The boy told him to give 100 breads to the teachers and take as many as he wanted. The other children were marveled by the amount of food in the classroom. Choi Yoon-ki called his friend Kim Jin-soo and asked him to distribute 5 breads to everyone. His friend was surprised by the amount, but the protagonist said he has enough. Kim Jin-soo grabbed the breads and started organizing the line for the snack distribution. The students lined up eagerly to receive the unexpected gift from Choi Yoon-ki. Lee Won-hee stood up furious and shouted at his classmates, calling them all beggars. A hand held one of the cream breads that had become the center of attention in the room. The boy distributing the snack handed the bread to a classmate who thanked him timidly. The students celebrated and enjoyed the breads that were given for free to everyone. The classroom filled with happy children eating the unexpected and delicious snack. Choi Yoon-ki watched the scene with a satisfied smile on his smart face. He seemed happy that his plan to win over his classmates had worked out so well. The ghost Choi Duck-bae got annoyed by the boy's happiness and called him a brat. He complained that his grandson gave bread to his classmates but offered nothing to him. Choi Yoon-ki ignored him and said he was being a distraction at that moment. The ghost threatened to tell all the dark secrets from the protagonist's past. The boy then offered a piece of bread and a bow in exchange for his silence. Kim Jin-soo approached and asked if he was okay, and Choi Yoon-ki started counting. The ancestor demanded that his grandson add milk to the deal, and the boy agreed. With the offer made, Choi Duck-bae fell silent, appearing satisfied with the bribe. Choi Yoon-ki winked at his friend as if everything were under control. The ghost accepted the offer of 3 breads and milk in exchange for staying quiet in a corner. He sat near the window, happy with his snack and his grandson's promise. The protagonist found the scene pathetic but felt relieved by the spirit's silence. Suddenly, the rich boy, Lee Won, he ground his teeth with anger over the situation. He approached the girl sitting next to him and demanded that she give him her pencil. The boy said he would sharpen her pencil for free, but the girl refused the offer. Ignoring the answer, Lee Won, he grabbed the pencil and started turning the handle forcefully. The pencil tip broke, and the rich boy pretended to be shocked by the accident. The girl started crying, saying her mother told her to use the pencil carefully. Kim Jin sighed and called his friend to handle the situation with the bully. Choi Yoon-ki asked his friend to sharpen one of his own pencils and give it to the girl. He also announced to the class that Kim Jin-soo would sharpen everyone's pencils. The protagonist said he would give his sharpener to his friend, and everyone celebrated the news. A line formed in front of Kim Jin-soo, and everyone handed their pencils to him. The scene changes to Lee Won-he's house where his family is having dinner. The boy's mother was shocked to learn that he demanded 500 brads at school. She complained that money doesn't grow on trees and forbade him from giving things to others. The father tried to calm the situation, but the mother continued to scold the spoiled son. The boy's grandfather arrived and picked him up, trying to calm the child's crying. The man is the chairman of Jake Textile and is named Lee Ki-seol. He asked his grandson why he needed so many breads, and the boy explained himself. Lee Ki-seol was surprised to learn that there is an unpleasant boy in his grandson's class. Lee Won, he complained that the other boy stops their classmates from helping him with his chores. He shared that Choi Yoon-ki distributed breads to buy popularity in the classroom. Grandfather Lee Ki-seol said he will look into the matter, and the boys celebrated the promise. Little Lee Won, he hugged his grandfather and celebrated, saying he is the best in the world. The ghost Choi Duk-bae watched the scene with an expression of surprise and suspicion. Back home, he complained about not receiving a proper memorial party. On a small table, 3 cream breads and a glass of milk were the offering of the day. Choi Duk-bae got emotional and revealed that it has been over a century since he last received that. He kept complaining that the temple food didn't have meat, and he isn't a vegetarian. Choi Yoon-ki smacked him on the head, saying he is very picky for a ghost. The spirit composed himself and said his grandson has no idea how long he waited for this. He shared how torturous it was to watch food videos without being able to taste anything. The ghost then revealed that his son converted to Catholicism, which is why he was left with nothing. The worst of all was that later on, the Catholic Church allowed ancestral rituals. He grumbled that raising children is useless and that he had to save his son from persecution. Choi Yoon-ki was shocked to learn that the Grim Reaper also exists, but the ghost choked. The spirit covered it up and told the boy to forget what he just heard in the conversation. The protagonist tried to bribe him with another feast, but the ghost refused the offer. Even with the promise of more meat, Choi Duk-bae told the boy to forget the matter. Little Choi Yoon-ki finally gave up on the idea and agreed to let it go. He then changed the subject and asked why the current family doesn't follow any religion. The ghost exploded with anger, saying that is exactly why he is so annoyed. He shouted right in the boy's face that if it weren't for his son, he would be eating well. The boy backed away in disgust, and the spirit said, "Ghost, don't leave smells behind." Suddenly, Choi Duk-bae snapped his fingers as if he remembered something important. He shared that he visited Lee Won-he's house and saw him gossiping with his grandfather. The ghost warned that the boy was distorting the story to make him look like the villain. But Choi Yoon-ki didn't seem to care and said to let the boy do whatever he wants. He lay down on his bed, his arms behind his head, completely relaxed. With a smile, he said a tiger doesn't worry about the barking of a small fox. The story explains that in the 70s and 80s, teachers competed for wealthy students. A teacher's salary was very low, so gifts from parents were welcome. Because of this, the teacher's lounge was always full of parents wanting to please the school. Those who didn't pay bribes saw their children treated poorly. Instead of hating the teachers, poor students felt envious of their wealthy classmates. That was how things worked in the era they lived in at that time. The scene changes to the teacher's lounge where Lee Ki-seol introduces himself to the teacher. The teacher Park Seon-jae apologized for not preparing a proper reception for him. She served a cup of instant coffee to the grandfather of the new student in class. Lee Ki-seol said he doesn't mind and asked if his grandson is having problems at school. The teacher grew nervous and promised she will pay much more attention to Lee Won-he. The grandfather then slid an envelope across the desk and said extra attention is good for everyone. He convinced her to accept the money, and the teacher thanked him for the generous gift. Satisfied with the teacher's promise, grandfather Lee Ki-seol prepared to leave. The teacher Park Seon-jae bowed and guaranteed he could go home with a peaceful mind. As soon as the man left the room, the woman's expression changed to one of greed. She stood up with a smile on her face and told herself that he has nothing to worry about. The scene moves to the luxurious residence of Chairman Choi Ji-hyun on a sunny day. Inside an elegant living room, the chairman tapped his fingers on the arm of the armchair. His hand stopped moving when he heard the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Sitting in his armchair, he stared at the person who had just entered his house. The teacher Park San-jae was there, looking nervous and intimidated by the environment. She confirmed she is Choi Yoon-ki's teacher, and the chairman invited her to relax. The woman asked if she could call him grandfather, and he agreed to her idea. With the chairman's permission, the teacher began to put her plan into action. She praised Choi Yoon-kai, saying he is the brightest student in her class. The teacher guaranteed that compared to the other children, he is her top priority. She then started talking about a new student who has been challenging the boy's position. The woman revealed that the grandson of the Jake Textiles family is causing trouble for Choi Yoon-ki. She shared that the boy's grandfather visited her to ask for special treatment for his grandson. The chairman interrupted her, and the teacher understood that he already knows everything that happened. With a serious expression, Choi Ji-hyun repeated the rival company's name with contempt. He then called for manager Kim, who approached respectfully to receive orders. The chairman asked his employee to bring something important for the visitor. The manager handed 2 thick envelopes to the teacher, who was completely shocked. The packages looked full of money, and the woman couldn't believe her eyes. The chairman revealed that he already knew about her visit because his grandson warned him in advance. Surprised, the teacher wondered how the boy could know about her plans. At that moment, the lounge door opened and a small figure entered the room. Little Choi Yoon-ki walked toward his grandfather with his hands in his pockets. The teacher watched him approach, still not understanding the boy's intelligence. He stopped beside his grandfather's armchair and stared at him with a confident smile. The chairman hugged his grandson and began to explain how he found out about the teacher's plan. In a flashback, the boy watched the conversation between the teacher and the rival grandfather. He saw Lee Ki-seol visiting the teacher's lounge and deduced what would happen. Choi Yoon-ki told his grandfather that his teacher was smart and quick to make decisions. The chairman realized that his grandson had excellent perception regarding people. With the boy on his lap, he continued the conversation with the teacher Park San-jae. He said the money is a reward for her choosing the right side to support. The chairman then officially hired her as Choi Yoon-ki's private tutor. The woman was completely taken aback by the unexpected job offer. With a satisfied smile, the grandfather waited for the teacher's response to his proposal. He shared that his grandson mentioned he would like to have private lessons with her. The boy Choi Yoon-ki smiled at his grandfather with an expression of pure innocence. The teacher Park San-jae widened her eyes in shock at the boy's intelligence. She stared at him and thought that he is like a mini chairman with that same smart look. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun explained that he heard his grandson finds the classes way too easy. He asked for the teacher to be his tutor, since the school cannot adapt to him. The woman couldn't believe the opportunity that just fell into her lap and accepted on the spot. The chairman praised the teacher's quick decision and began to discuss the details. Park San-jae said the schedule can be whatever Choi Yoon-ki prefers and accepted any payment. With everything settled, the grandfather said she can start the next day without further delay. The ceiling of the elegant living room showed that the deal was finally sealed. The teacher's shoes stepped on the floor as she prepared to leave the mansion. She said goodbye to the boy and said she will see him at school the next day as agreed. Choi Yoon-ki watched his new private tutor leave through the front door of the house. After she left, he sat on the couch next to his grandfather to talk. The boy asked if what he did was enough to please the older man. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun stared at him with a serious look full of pride for his grandson. With a smile, Choi Yoon-ki confirmed he did everything just as they planned. The grandfather asked why he insists on having lessons with that specific teacher. The boy swung his legs in the air with an expression of someone who has a bigger plan in mind. His eyes shone with the intelligence of an adult in a little child's body. With a confident smile, he prepared to explain the logic behind his decision. Choi Yoon-ki revealed that having that teacher as a tutor will bring him many benefits. The ghost Choi Duk-bae watched the scene from afar, curious about the boy's explanation. The protagonist explained that the teacher will work hard to prove she deserves the money. This means she will provide a much better return on investment than other tutors. The ancestor bragged, saying the plan worked surprisingly well, just as he predicted. In his thoughts, the grandfather reflected that the word genius seems more real in his time. Choi Yoon-ki decided it's time to drop the child act and show his cards. With a subtle smile, he felt ready to begin the second phase of his plan. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun let out a loud, happy laugh at his grandson's intelligence. He said proudly that the boy is truly his grandson and carries the same blood. The ghost Choi Duk-bae got annoyed by the company chairman's exaggerated laughter. It is revealed that Choi Hyun's skill was building businesses from scratch. From a young age, he founded and expanded his company with a natural talent for managing people. The company grew and became a major conglomerate thanks to its founder's talent. The chairman's gaze showed that he sees the same potential in his little grandson. He worried about his son's lack of ability, but his grandson is a true promise. Although he isn't thinking about a successor yet, he feels good about the family's future. The grandfather then asked the boy if he wants to grow up and become like him one day. Choi Yoon-ki replied that he doesn't want to be like him, but rather an even greater man. Chairman Choi Ji-hyun laughed and agreed that his grandson should become a greater man. In his thoughts, he felt that the boy's boldness is better than a lack of ambition. Choi Yoon-ki then said he needs a favor from his grandfather to become a great man. Curious, the chairman asked what it was about, and the boy replied with the rival company's name. With a confident smile, the protagonist said he wants his grandfather to buy Jake Textile. The scene shows the storefront of the company that became the little boy's target. In a flashback, Representative Lee Ki-seul stared at an important document on his desk. It is a merger contract between the Samwang Group and Jake Textile in front of him. The final page of the document awaited the signatures of both chairmen to be finalized. Lee Ki-seul seemed desperate and shocked by the corporate merger proposal. On the other side of the table, Chairman Choi Hyun stared at him with a cold expression. With authority, he simply ordered the other man to sign the merger contract. Lee Ki-seul tried to argue, but Choi Ji-hyun told him not to sign it if he doesn't want to. The chairman of Jake Textile knew that refusing the proposal would have severe consequences. He remembered a previous conversation he had with the other company chairman. Choi Ji-hyun subtly reminded him that their grandsons study in the very same classroom. The veiled threat made Lee Won-hee's grandfather kneel in despair. With sweat trickling down his face, he finally made a difficult decision. Lee Ki-seul agreed to sign the contract and lamented the end of his beloved company. Back in the present, the grandfather said he can buy the company if his grandson wants. But he warned that he cannot grant this favor without a very good reason for it. The chairman asked if the boy just wants to turn his rival's grandson into his lackey. Choi Yoon-ki explained that the textile industry is important for the country's prosperity. He argued that if the government freezes wages, they can profit heavily from it. The grandfather was surprised and asked where the boy learned all that about economics. Choi Ji-hyun reflected that the textile industry is still too profitable to be ignored. He also agreed they can profit if the military regime freezes wages. The chairman thought that keeping a foot in the textile business wouldn't be a bad idea. After much thought, he finally agreed to buy Jake Textile for his grandson. But he warned that the boy saw what happened to the others who failed him. The grandfather said that if the company goes under, his evaluation of his grandson will plummet. Little Choi Yoon-ki faced his grandfather with a serious and determined posture. He understood that he cannot fail like the others who presented business strategies. The chairman warned him that his evaluation will also be damaged if something goes wrong. Time passed, and the boys continued at the same school and the same class. Kim Jin-soo, now 10 years old, celebrated that he and Choi Yoon-ki are soulmates. Lee Won-hee, at the same age, said it's obvious that Choi Yoon-ki pulled some strings. Kim Jin-soo was surprised by the revelation, but his friend confirmed the story. The boy turned to Choi Yoon-ki and asked if it's true that he did that. Now 10 years old and in 3rd grade, the protagonist only smiled mysteriously. Kim Jin-soo tried to defend his friend, but Choi Yoon-ki said he didn't say anything to his family. Over time, Kim Jin-soo became Choi Yoon-ki's right-hand man at school. Lee Won-hee, who lost weight, became a lackey and the protagonist's left-hand man. The school bell rang once more, announcing the long-awaited lunch hour. Back then, lunch was a moment that showed the wealth gap among the children. Poor children brought simple foods like rice and kimchi to school. Meanwhile, wealthy children had lunchboxes with eggs and other delicious side dishes. And there were also children who had nothing to eat and drank water to trick their hunger. A boy hurried another to open his lunchbox, curious to see what was inside. The food owner complained, but his classmate insisted that he open his lunch soon. Choi Yoon-ki watched the scene and complained that his friend was being stingy with the food. The boy was marveled by what he saw inside his classmate's lunchbox. Inside the box was rice, eggs, and roasted meat, a delicious and rare dish. The friend prepared to steal a piece of meat and thanked him for the meal. But before he could grab the food, a hand gripped his wrist with incredible strength. The boy startled and didn't understand why his friend stopped him from taking the food. Choi Yoon-ki watched the scene with his arms crossed and a serious expression on his face. A bully approached the desk and stared at the group with a threatening look. His eyes shone with malice and he seemed ready to start a fight with them. Choi Yoon-ki felt like he had seen that face before but couldn't remember where. The bully's determined look made him remember something important from his past. The ghost Choi Duk-ba watched the scene in silence beside his grandson. Kim Jin-soo tried to reason with the bully but was completely ignored by the boy. The ghost then asked if the protagonist didn't recognize him, and the memory returned. Choi Yoon-ki's gaze filled with rage as he remembered the man from his past life. In an instant, he kicked the table, sending the lunchbox flying through the air. The bully grabbed Choi Yoon-ki's collar, ready to start a fight in the room. Without hesitating, the protagonist landed a heavy punch on the older boy's face. The fight intensified, and the two traded blows in the middle of the classroom. Kim Jin-soo shouted his friend's name, worried about the commotion that just started. The bully held Choi Yoon-ki's face down on the ground with an expression of hatred. With his eyes red from anger, the protagonist prepared to strike back. He stared at the enemy with a fury that didn't match a child's body. Lee Won-hee and Kim Jin-soo watched the fight, and one of them asked if they should help. The other said there's no need because Choi Yoon-ki is an incredibly good fighter. He revealed that his friend trains in taekwondo, boxing, and kendo, and knows how to defend himself very well. The bully took a hard blow to the stomach and fell to the ground, unable to react. Shocked, he stared at the boy who defeated him, not understanding where so much strength came from. A memory from the past showed the bully, now an adult, humiliating Kim Chan-yeol. He offered money and asked if the man wanted an apology for having his life stolen. The memory of the bully calling him a failure came back strong in his mind. He remembered being humiliated and subdued in front of his own family. The protagonist relived the scene from his past life with a look of pure despair. The bully accused him of having a happy family and never fighting for anything. The man's words echoed in his mind, blaming him for his miserable life. Back in the present, Choi-yoon-ki stared at the bully with uncontrollable rage. The older boy fell to the ground, completely defeated by the protagonist's fury. The ghost Choi-deok-bae watched the scene with a look of concern and surprise. Kim Jin-soo tried to hold his friend back and begged him to stop striking the other boy. He said Choi-yoon-kai doesn't need to go that far over a piece of meat. Lee Won-hee also approached and warned him that he's going to end up crossing the line. He said that since his friend has a lot to lose, he should simply calm down. Kim Jin-soo asked what the bully's name is, and the other boy was surprised. Lee Won-hee revealed that his name is Kim Chan-yeol, the biggest fighter in the class. He shared that the boy spends his time stealing other people's money and hurting their fingers. The protagonist realized that the bully was a cruel person from the very beginning of everything. He felt relieved that it wasn't just a coincidence and clenched his fists tight. Now he knew he could break that boy with a completely clear conscience. The scene changes to the teacher's lounge, where the teacher awaits them. She asked who was responsible for the fight, and one of the boys started talking. Lee Won-hee and Kim Jin-soo raised their hands and took the blame for the commotion in the room. The teacher Park San-ja got annoyed and demanded that they tell the truth. Choi-yoon-ki stepped forward and said he was the one who started the fight with the other boy. He explained that the bully was ruining the class atmosphere, which is why he confronted him. The teacher was left speechless and simply told him not to do that again. She scolded him for going too far as the class vice president and dismissed him. The boys agreed and prepared to head back to the classroom after the scolding. In profile, Choi-yoon-ki thanked the teacher and left the room with his friends. The ghost Choi-deok-bae watched his grandson's expression and noticed he was furious. The boy's face was full of scratches and his eyes burned with deep hatred. The bully Kim Chan-yeol was hospitalized for 3 days after the fight. The protagonist remembered how the boy looked after taking such a beating at school. After the incident, the bully returned to school with his face covered in bandages. Choi-yoon-ki mentioned that the boy was so traumatized he couldn't even look him in the eye. But the bully thought he could keep bothering others as long as he avoided him. He tried to harass other classmates, but Choi-yoon-ki stopped him every single time. The bully was shocked by the protagonist's intervention and couldn't react. With a cold voice, Choi-yoon-ki ordered the boy to stop behaving that way. The bully backed away in fear while one of his targets celebrated the unexpected help. The ghost Choi-deok-bae watched the scene and wondered what the boy was doing. With a cold smile, the ghost realized that the boy is trying to draw someone out. The protagonist narrated that he simply waited patiently for the right moment. Suddenly, the classroom door opened and a voice asked who Choi-yoon-ki is. Choi-yoon-ki kept reading his book while Choi-deok-bae watched him from the desk behind. Without warning, a heavy fist slammed right into the classroom wall, startling everyone. The bully's father entered the room shouting, asking once again who Choi-yoon-ki is. With great calm, the protagonist raised his hand to identify himself to the man. He stood up and said it's him while his friends shouted his name in concern. The man stared at him and told his friends not to follow them out of the classroom. The protagonist thought that the time has finally come to settle scores with that man. He remembered the man from his past life, who was known as the Dog Butcher. His childhood was a living hell because his mother abandoned him, and his father only wanted his money. In his memory, he recalled a winter scene in a poor, abandoned neighborhood. In the middle of winter, his father took all his money and threw him out of the house without clothes. It was on that day that the young boy swore to himself that he no longer had parents. The scene changes from the dark past to the present outside the school. The bully's father approached and asked if he was the one who beat up his son. The ghost asked if he thinks he is better than the others, and Choi-yoon-ki confirmed he is. Annoyed, the man called him a brat, but the boy said his goal is only money. The protagonist then asked how much money he needs to resolve the situation. Next, he pulled out a wallet full of cash, surprising the bully's father. Choi-yoon-ki threw all the money on the ground and asked again how much he wants. The man grew desperate and said that that is enough for the hospital bills. The boy threw even more money in his face, proving that his pride was fragile. The bully's father wasted no time and started gathering all the money from the ground. Slowly, Choi-yoon-ki stepped on one of the cash bills that fell to the ground. With red eyes, he swore he will play with that man until the day he dies. Time passed, and the scene shows the school courtyard completely empty and silent. In the classroom, the boys noticed that the bully didn't show up at school again. Lee Won-hee and Kim Jin-soo talked with another classmate about the bully's disappearance. The classmate found it strange for him to miss more than 10 days and started to worry. One of them commented that his father usually controls the beating so he can still work. The scene changes and shows a blue sky with white clouds and some utility lines. A white luxury car drove quickly down a dirt road in the countryside. Choi-yoon-ki asked driver Kim to stop by a friend's house for a moment. He looked out the window and explained to the driver that it is a different boy's house. The car approached a poor village, and the youth said he is worried about his friend. The car stopped in front of a narrow street with very simple, old houses. The protagonist got out of the car and observed the poor neighborhood and the stone streets. He remembered that in his past life, he also used to live in a place like that. The protagonist and driver Kim climbed the poor neighborhood stairs with difficulty. Visiting that place brought back the worst memories, and he clenched his fist tight. When he reached the house door, he noticed that no one was there and everything was silent. At that moment, an old lady approached and asked if he is a friend of the boy from the house. Choi Yoon, he asked where his friend is, and she revealed that the boy ran away from home. She explained that the father started hitting his wife, which is why she also ran away. The youth asked about the father, and the lady shared that the wife reported him to the police. He discovered that the man was arrested and thought that, unlike the bully, he endured it all. Choi Duk-bae appeared and asked if he noticed that the past is also changing. The ghost said that by living happily, he did notice that he has already heavily altered the past. He warned that a single action of his can alter the life of someone with no connection at all. Because of his choices, the future he knew is going to change completely. The ghost concluded by saying that how he will deal with this depends solely on him. Not knowing what to do, Choi Yoon, he just kept walking in silence down the street. He wondered if there is a specific future that he needs to change with his actions. Choi Duk-bae approached and confirmed that there is indeed a future he needs to avoid. He revealed that this future is the day the protagonist took his own life. An image of his bloody hand on the ground showed the tragic end of his past life. The ghost reminded him that on that day, the Samwon group had gone completely bankrupt. The scene changes to a traditional house where he visits Lee Ki-seol, his friend's grandfather. Lee Ki-seol, the chairman of Jake Textile, asked if the boy wants his company. With great respect, Choi Yoon-ki knelt down and confirmed that he wants the company. The man asked if he knows what it means to be a chairman, and the youth said yes. He said his grandfather started his business at age 8, but he can only start as an adult. With great confidence, the protagonist stated that he wants to be exactly like his grandfather. The grandfather praised his attitude but explained that studies are important at that age. He suggested that the boy study until college, but Choi Yoon-ki thought it would be too late. With a smile on his face, the protagonist called the man grandfather again to please him. The youth explained that starting now and starting after college are entirely different things. He then asked for a chance so as not to waste time and to save the Samwon group from bankruptcy.